I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with a very special guest, our resident gatekeeper, Mr. Chris Curl. He is the gentleman and the wizard behind Chris Curl's crypto service. Perfect week for Chris to be on. This is the 292nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. The Trumpster is in. The world didn't end. Lots of things are reacting. We're going to talk markets. We're going to talk reactions. We're going to talk elections and takes and what comes next. But first and foremost, Mr. Curl, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Gerardo. How are you?
I am excellent. I couldn't think of a better week to have you on. We have a lot going on in the markets. We have Jerome with the Fed cut. We have language there that we can chat about here in just a second. We have Mr. Trump winning the election in a landslide, not only winning the election, but Republicans sweeping the bulk of the important elections throughout the country, which has, however you feel about that, it's very consequential for the market. So I'd like to start there before we get into something that you predicted earlier in the year, along with the Trump win. You predicted record highs in the Bitcoin space. You guided your subscribers of Chris Curl's crypto cycle service beautifully through what was a pretty nasty little consolidation, right? The pullback had a lot of people nervous. It had a lot of people wondering why the halving wasn't working the way it was meant to work. And so I want to get to all of that, but let's start with the market consequences of Trump being elected. The initial reaction was a huge run up in the US dollar, going up some 1%, breaching the 105 level, the dollar index. And that was consequential for the gold price, which slipped almost $100, the silver price, which was down some 4%, the copper price, which took a 5% beating. And, I had the good fortune and luck, and I say that somewhat sarcastically, of having about 2 hours that morning to react to the downturn in the metals market where I dabble exclusively, right? And it kind of put out my thoughts. And of course, what people want to know is this just a buy the dip moment, or is this like the new trend? And what I wrote was, we don't know how Mr. Trump is going to lead. We know what he has said. We know that he has mentioned that he wants Elon Musk to come in and find a couple of $1 trillion in wasteful spending, which, I'm not being sarcastic, shouldn't be too hard to do if we just start with the defense budget, right? But that is, I think it's that policy approach that really got people going, okay, if that's going to happen, then the dollar is going to surge and it's risk off. Not to mention the Dow surging some 1,500 points, right? So there were a lot of correlations there. And then Bitcoin did exactly what it was supposed to do, rising. So let me start by asking you about Bitcoin. I had the luxury of writing that article that morning, and luckily we now have a second day of trading action, which I think bodes well, and we'll get into why. But I want to talk about Bitcoin. Why did you call for a Trump victory several months ago, and how did you know it was going to make new highs?
So that's a really loaded question, a good one, and I'll try to answer it as succinctly as possible. But so I mean, I predicted that Trump would win several months ago, based on a lot of factors. I mean, one of them is that I live in Spokane, Washington. I'm not in a cloistered, wealthy coastal city. Where they often have kind of a more liberal groupthink going on, and they're often insulated from some of the more real world impacts of government policy that affect, regular people very severely. So, I mean, the reality is that the inflation that we've been seeing over the last 4 years has really been destroying American families and really pulling the floor out from a lot of people trying to get their footing in life. And even though Trump shares much of the blame for the deficit spending and the economic damage that we're witnessing now, Biden has not really been any better. And whoever is in the White House when the S hits the fan, as it were, is the one who takes the blame.
We curse around
And
here,
that's
Chris.
really
It's when the shit hits the fan. Absolutely.
well, yeah, exactly. So, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, things are very bad. People are seeing their insurance rates skyrocket. People are, seeing their rent skyrocket. They can't go to the grocery store and buy food for their family. So at the most basic level, the reality is that this economy is terrible, regardless of what the TV tells you, because the TV's been telling you, oh, everything's great, all these numbers are great. But for the average working American, they are getting completely left behind, and they see Trump as someone who can deliver some kind of normalcy. They can go back to 2017, 2018 when they could afford things, and that's what they're hoping will happen. And I'm not going to speculate on whether or not that is going to happen, but at least
I will.
uh, he's saying some things that sound positive and hopeful for the economy. The Democrats plan to raise taxes, have massive tax increases on corporations, have massive tax increases on capital gains, to even go so far as to tax unrealized capital gains, which I think is completely un-American and nonsensical. Those things just aren't going to fly with the American public at a time when we're already overly taxed,
Sure.
particularly considering what we're getting in return. So all of these factors came into play for Donald Trump to win, and that's not even getting into all the social issues, because Lord knows I don't have time to delve into any of those things.
I, I,
But
I, I hear you. I hear you.
the one really big factor that I saw differentiate the Republicans from the Democrats in a major social and economic way was when Donald Trump earlier in the year lent his support to Bitcoin. This was a guy who previously had called Bitcoin a scam, that had undermined the strength and legitimacy and dominance of the dollar as the global reserve currency. And I think he's had a major about face. I don't know how authentic it is ideologically for Trump. I think a lot of it just had to do with political capital and getting a lot of campaign contributions from these crypto PACs that have been founded over the last couple of years. But I do believe that he will follow through with his pro Bitcoin policies. And more than that, he has surrounded himself now with a lot of much smarter people who actually do believe in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. People like J.D. Vance, people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. The list really goes on with younger people who are more tech savvy and more in tune with the actual problems that we're facing as a society economically. So when he lent his support to Bitcoin, he lent his support to the Bitcoin mining industry. This was in direct contrast to the Biden regime and the Democrats, which has been doing everything they can to hamper innovation in the United States and push all of the crypto companies out of the US. And this was largely spearheaded by people like Elizabeth Warren and the
Sure.
SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, who has just been going on an anti crypto crusade for the last 3 years. So with
I
Trump
don't think
coming
we're going to
into
hear
office,
much from Gary anytime soon.
oh, no. Well, I predicted a year ago that his political career was pretty much over. And now with Trump coming into office, he's said he's going to fire him on day one. He's probably going to replace him with someone like Hester Pierce, who's much more crypto friendly, much more free markets. And that is, of course, going to buoy the entire crypto industry. And now that we likely have a Republican Congress as well as a Republican president, and these crypto PACs have been funding a lot of these Senate and congressional campaigns on the Republican side, we're just going to see a lot of pro crypto policy. And at the very least, we're not going to have any anti crypto policy like we've had under the Dems. We're going to have more policy that expands Bitcoin mining in the United States, which is going to be a huge growth industry moving forward for the country. Also helps stabilize the electrical grid because it has all this baseload power that it utilizes that it can then sell back at times of stress. So I think Bitcoin mining is great in that sense. And yeah, we're going to see this nascent industry, much like kind of the tech and .com industry of the late 90s. I think we're really going to hopefully see this gain a foothold in America and allow our economy to really grow in some organic and authentic way.
That was really well articulated, Chris. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me as someone that dabbles exclusively in the resource space and hasn't dabbled in the crypto space at all, outside of Mr. Hodge, my friend, colleague, and business partner, and I giving you 50,000 of our dollars a year or so ago and saying, "Hey, Chris, how about you manage this and go just go play with our $50,000, make it more money, right?" And just to be clear, how has that done thus far for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's doubled. So what we had happen was the Bitcoin halving occurred, which is historically a bullish catalyst because it halves the mining rewards for Bitcoin, which decreases the overall issuance. Basically, is just one more function that makes it deflationary. So that happened in April of this year. And really, it seemed like that combined with the spot Bitcoin ETF approvals, which I also predicted would get approved the moment that BlackRock filed theirs, because
Sure, because
BlackRock,
BlackRock.
they get what they want. This is part of the big club that George Carlin was talking about, the one that you ain't in. I mean, they're going to get what they want. So they got their ETF approval, and that kind of caused a Bitcoin to hit a new all-time high very, very early in the cycle. So we saw Bitcoin hit a new all-time high before the halving, which had never happened before. And then what happened was we just kind of had this long 6-7 month consolidation period where Bitcoin was really just trading between like 58,000 to 68,000
Sure.
roughly. It would dip a little below and surge a little higher. But that was, even though a very difficult time, particularly in the altcoin markets, because those sold off a lot, they're more speculative. Um, I remained very firm in my conviction that we were only about halfway through the cycle and Bitcoin would push higher to new all-time highs, particularly given the bullish catalyst that I outlined in September of last year. First one was the approval of that spot Bitcoin ETF and others, which happened. We had the Bitcoin halving in April. And then just in September, we finally had the Fed cutting rates, which, always provides, some stimulus to the equity markets. And Bitcoin is somewhat correlated to that as well. So all of those things finally converge to now break Bitcoin out of that really painful consolidation period that we were in for 6-7 months. Even though it was very bullish, I mean, consolidating around your previous cycle high for an asset is bullish. That means you're almost certainly going to break out higher. And that's what's happening right now. And that's combined with the fact that presidential elections in the US have, if you look back at the data, they have always been major bullish catalysts for Bitcoin. You've seen every time, it's a 4-year cycle. Every time we have that election, Bitcoin breaks out in a major way, and that's happening right as we speak.
I started to mention correlations and how fascinating they are to me. And I started to compare the crypto space with the resource space. And it's curious to me that in the resource space, we have a commodity super cycle. And at the exact same time that we're seeing record demand, whether it's for gold or whether it's for uranium or whether it's for copper, right? All commodities that I believe will continue to see record demand. We're seeing supply take longer and longer to be able to come online, and I think one of the benefits of having a Republican-led, pro-business friendly Republican administration in the mining space, whether we're talking Bitcoin mining or we're talking traditional out of the dirt mining, is the fact that there's going to be less red tape. Now, you can feel, folks, however you feel about the election. We could discuss and argue social issues on both sides. I'm passionate about certain issues that I disagree with the elected administration with, and I'm really favorable on a lot of the positions that the administration is appearing to take. And again, we'll see which Donald Trump and which administration we actually get, because theory is one thing, practice is a completely different thing. We've seen that before. This isn't our first go with Mr. Trump. But it's curious to me that at the same time that we have so much more demand for altcoins, for Bitcoin, for uranium, for gold, for copper, we're seeing so much less supply, right? And that to me is curious, and it's also somewhat ironic that your service is called Chris Curl's crypto cycle, right? Because we have these commodity super cycles. We have what I absolutely believe, because I read your stuff, is a super cycle in the coin space, the Bitcoin mining space, the altcoins. And I don't want to give away the farm, but I absolutely, everybody that knows Mr. Hodge and myself, you know that we talk a lot, especially me, but we also put our money where our mouth is, right? And so I don't want you, Chris, to tell them where you think Bitcoin will go. And maybe we'll share one altcoin at the end of this before we leave. But what I do want to do, because I absolutely believe that your service is the premier crypto service in the entire space. I'll put it up against anybody's service in the publishing industry. And I say that respectfully. Everybody should believe that, or you shouldn't be doing it. But I believe so much in that if you are at all into crypto and you are curious and you want a service that has educational series, videos, articles, alerts, buy calls, sell calls, I want to give subscribers of Junior Resource Monthly, current subscribers, which is my, mid to long-term service that is dedicated towards playing those super cycles and maximizing profits from those. I want to give subscribers and people of that service the opportunity to try Mr. Curl's service absolutely free of charge. Do it for a month. Test drive it. Write in. Let us know that you're a member of Junior Resource Monthly, that you watch this podcast. And I would love for all of you to just take a peek behind the curtain, because if Mr. Curl is right about the predictions that he's made, and again, he called the Trump win months ago, right? We could be mad at the pollsters, or we could be happy at, the poly odds over here. But what you can't argue with is the timestamp a few months ago where Mr. Curl said, the CTF's going to get approved. Trump's going to get elected. Bitcoin's going to make new highs. Just let it pass, right? All of that has come to pass. So if you're as right about your next set of predictions as you were the last set of predictions, then I want people to be able to make money off of that. And I think you provide a great service. So that's our freebie for you for the day. You get this for free for now, y'all. We're going to give you a free month of Chris Curl's crypto cycle. I encourage anybody that's curious about crypto mining to get in there, take advantage of it, try it out. If it's not your cup of tea, you don't have to keep it. It's free. And if it is your cup of tea after a month, we're going to ask you to subscribe to the service to keep getting the best content in the crypto space. So listen, again, I don't want to do price targets. I want people to have exposure to your service. I thought that was really well put. Let me give you my take, kind of going back to where we started on the gold space, the silver space, the copper space, the metal space in general, and the uranium space. Because again, a Trump presidency is very consequential, because it is going to be more pro-business and more pro-mining, and it's going to be a lot less red tape than there has been in the past 4 years. Now, we could talk about inflation and why, Ms. Harris lost this election, and frankly, we could go back to the Barack days, right, when he bailed out the banks and decided to go ahead and with the central bank's help, by the way, which everybody knows I'm no fan of the Fed. But this has started. It actually didn't even start with Mr. Obama. It goes all the way back to George Bush. I think Bill Clinton is the last person that had a somewhat balanced budget. Then you had George Bush. Then you had foreign wars. Then you had trillions of dollars of tax cuts while we were trying to fund those wars. Mr. Obama came in, economic crisis. You could argue that he did a good job leading us out. You could also argue that he did that at the expense of a lot of people by bailing out the banks instead of bailing out the people, and flooding, again, with the central bank's help, the markets with cash, right? Easy cash. Not a coincidence that you fast forward and then you have, Trump presidency, say it's a similar thing. A lot of free money, a lot of cheap money, a lot of capital awash in the system. And now you have Mr. Biden the past 4 years doing the exact same thing. So I want to be absolutely clear. I don't think there is the political will on either side of the spectrum to cut in a significant way. Because if I'm a Democrat and I just won the presidency, I don't want to go back to the districts that just voted me in and say, hey, by the way, guys, factories are shutting down. The military bases are shutting down. There's too much waste here. We're cutting, 25% of the workforce in order to be lean and mean. Now, I could be wrong. Elon Musk has been, proven to be able to do that. He's done it with his own private corporations, and he will have a large influence on this president. He absolutely has the president's ear. When you campaign the way that Elon Musk, and he did it brilliantly, however you feel about the election, when you put your money where your mouth is the way that he did, Elon Musk is going to write a lot of our nation's policy moving forward on a lot of issues, And so I would love to be proven wrong on the fact that with the $36 trillion of deficit, the budget being in deficit and the interest on that, I have a hard time believing that anyone's going to be able to turn that train around or at least slow it down. But I'm hopeful. And I'm absolutely, willing to see how the administration approaches that. So a lot there. I think copper, gold, silver showed you on the second day after the election that it's business as usual, right? The S&P, the NASDAQ closed at record highs. Gold bounced back another $50, closed above 2,700 really quickly. Silver was up again 3-4% after being down 4-5% the day before. And copper had a good intraday rally, up as much as 3-4% during the day before a slight pullback at the end. That, of course, comes on the heels of a Trump victory because we're now foreseeing China, which has a very important policy decision in the next week or so. China had said that the size and scale of their next stimulus will be decided by whether or not Trump wins or loses, and that a Trump victory to them was very indicative of a better business environment and that they would expand the scale of their stimulus package. And I think you saw the metals, in particular copper, react to that, right? So it'll be curious to see what the follow-throughs look like. As bullish as ever on gold, on silver, on copper, on uranium, lithium still bottoming. You clearly believe, Mr. Curl, that Bitcoin's best days are ahead of it. Am I accurate in saying that?
Absolutely, yeah. And as you were saying about, a Republican business-friendly regime taking, control of the government, the Democrats have been pushing ESG for the last 4 years, and ESG is not friendly to mining of any kind.
Correct.
I think is maybe partially why you have not seen a lot of the mining companies catch a bid, even when we've seen metals prices hit new all-time highs. And that very well could change with the Republican administration.
Well, there's a lot of projects. There's a lot of companies that had mining projects, traditional mining projects that as soon as the results were announced, they shot up 30, 40, 50%. And it's not a coincidence. A lot of these projects were challenged on the permitting side. And of course, the thinking is that we're going to have a clearer path towards permitting with quicker timelines. And again, in fairness to Mr. Biden and his administration, the one piece of legislation that had some really good stuff in it for the space that I dabble in, I always say the comically named Inflation Reduction Act, which, threw more money at the problem, but it had some really good critical metals legislation in there that I have to believe that although Mr. Trump has campaigned on a promise to go in there and gut that, I have to believe that there's going to be a lot of Republican senators and representatives in districts that benefit greatly from those jobs and that push. The bulk of the money that goes into projects in mining friendly states tend to be red states, tend to be Republican led states. I have a hard time believing that he's going to go in there and gut that. And the metals prices thus far don't indicate that they believe that that'll be the case. I believe he's going to have a lot of people at his desk that helped him win this election say, we can't cut these 10,000 jobs, Mr. President. It's going to look like you're anti the people after the people just delivered you a clear path forward with a clear mandate to govern. And again, you can feel however you feel about the election and who won and who lost. America clearly, and I'm glad the Democrats conceded this, and I'm glad they're having their come to Jesus moment with each other. But I am really glad that they were classy and conceded in a classy way and said, we lost fair and square. You're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. Mr. Biden called Mr. Trump, by Mr. Trump's own words, said he was elegant and respectful and ensured him that his staff would be the most cooperative to make the transition in the next 4 years as good for the American people as possible. As classy as Mr. Biden was and as classy as Mr. Trump has been in acknowledging that, I hope that all of us as Americans, whether we voted for Trump or Harris, or didn't vote at all, right? Like a lot of people that I know. I hope that we can have those types of discussions about being a better country and being better in our community and being better for our community, because, pun intended, that should trump whatever your political beliefs are. Keep fighting for those in the most civil of ways and in the most American of ways. Use your voice, use your influence. Hey, if you have it, like Elon Musk, use your dollars, use your checkbook. But we can do that in a way that still allows people to look at America as a great country with a great path forward that's in a transitional phase, because however you feel about Mr. Trump, the next 4 years are very consequential and will be very transformative. And I hope that we can all do that as citizens, in the most civil of ways, however we feel about it, right?
Totally agreed.
And with that, back to what we do, I think we're going to make a lot of money in the next 4 years, folks. I think, Mr. Curl with his service and his subscribers are going to do very, very well. Mr. Hodge is the master of all trades. He dabbles in a little bit of everything, though he's heavily weighted in the resource space. But, there's biotech deals, there's crypto deals, there's all sorts of deals that he looks at every day and vets every day and brings to his subscribers. And of course, my bread and butter, I'm fortunate enough right now to, I think we're going into a market that's going to make my job a whole lot easier and a whole lot funner and a whole lot more profitable with this commodity super cycle that I think is going to be ramped up under a Trump presidency. So it's going to be a fun several years, a profitable several years, and let's hope it's a peaceful and responsible several 4 years, not just domestically, but internationally, because we have large influence on a lot of what's going on around the world, a lot of the geopolitical chaos that's going on around the world. And be absolutely clear that however you feel about Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, he does generate a response from foreign governments, because much like George Bush did back in the days, they know he might push the button. And it's a little different when you don't believe the other person will hit you in the face. When you believe the person that you're talking with might have a bad day enough to hit you in the face, you tend to think a little bit more about what comes out of your mouth to that person. And it doesn't mean this is the right approach. I don't want everybody writing in saying, sounds like you're in support for this or that. No, I'm not. This is not about who I'm in support of. These are just the facts. And so I think it was telling that as soon as Mr. Trump won, all of the major corporations, including the tech companies that had donated to the Harris campaign, all wrote in immediately on X, on Elon Musk's platform, congratulating him. The Amazons, the Googles, the Microsofts, all the companies that, tend to lean left and donate a lot of money to the left, understood it was kiss the ring time, understood the influence Elon was going to have, and understood that the olive branch was, let me get on X, the platform we're competing against, and go tell the guy who's beating us on the head for the last 6 months with his checkbook that we understand what we got ourselves into and what the next 4 years are going to be. And so again, I think competition is good, and let's see what happens here in the next 4 years. Before we go, I have to say a couple of things. Mr. Hodge and I always at the end of this podcast like to follow up on companies that we have either recommended or we think are good opportunities, right? The last two that we really touched on were Aldebaran Resources and Kingsman Resources. One, a copper gold company in Argentina. One, a silver gold with some base metal credits in northern Mexico, very mining friendly northern Mexico. And, Aldebaran Resources just struck what equates to a $250 million deal with a Rio Tinto subsidiary that allows for Nuton to earn into 20% of the project in exchange for up to $250 million. And the stock closed at a 52-week high today. That stock is headed much higher. the company also requested that Aldebaran give it the first rights on any takeout bid. So if they're offered a takeover offer by another company, they have the right to match it or exceed it. So it provides a clear path to little to no dilution for the next several years. And it also provides a partner that has the technology to take some of the more challenging parts of the Altar copper gold deposit and make it very profitable, which is going to have a significant impact on the economics. So Aldebaran, new 52-week highs, new all-time highs. Congrats to that team over there. One of the better structured deals I've seen in some time. And Kingsman Resources, Kingsman Resources today was up some 20%. The company is a few cents away from closing at an all-time high. Closed today at, it was up 24%. It closed at 40 cents, 39.5 cents. 52-week high is 44 cents. We just helped finance that company at 25 cents with a 40-cent full warrant. Good for a couple of years. I think that stock trades in dollars, not cents, sooner rather than later. And I expect a drill bit to start turning in early January after the Christmas break. I think 2024 is the last time you'll be able to buy Kingsman Resources in cents and not dollars. So do with that what you will, everybody. I'm biased. Own shares in both companies, own a significant position in Kingsman. But there's a reason for that, right? Just like everything else. So with that, Mr. Curl, I would love, and you could call it, you could give us your Bitcoin prediction, though I'd rather you tease that one and save it for the letter. But if you have an altcoin or a coin that you think is a pretty solid bet here moving forward, given the environment that we're in now, I'd love for you to share that with everybody in your reasoning.
Yeah, so you were talking about the free trial. We're feeling really confident, obviously, about crypto, and I do think it's worth checking out, even if you just get in there, buy a few coins, and wait 6 to 8 months. I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised at the kind of price performance we're going to see, because I think we're really in that stage of the market cycle. And I have a lot of coins that I'm pretty bullish on, and I'm still holding in the portfolio. I'm gonna I guess I'll go ahead and throw a meme coin out there this time, which I've never done before. But for everyone who missed out on Pepe the Frog, which went viral and hit an almost $5 billion market cap, that was on the Ethereum blockchain. I think I've found the Pepe of the Solana blockchain, which is
Oh.
Frog, FWOG. It's up over 5x from when we bought it in the portfolio. It's sitting at about, $500 million market cap. I think it'll hit at least $1 billion market cap. So if you just want to speculate on a fun meme coin that it's almost guaranteed to double from here, I really like that one.
I like it. I'm going to have to ask you about, and you may already know, I'll ask you on air, and if not, we could follow up. So Iggy Azalea is absolutely brilliant and beautiful, which is a phenomenal combination, right? Anytime that I speak about a woman, right? If you're brilliant and beautiful, you're easy to talk about. And she's really gotten behind this coin that she literally is mothering, right? She is the brand ambassador. It's her baby. It's called Mother, right? Have you had a chance to look at any of the fundamentals or however you assess, some of these meme coins and seeing if there's some merit there?
Yeah, I mean, meme coins are very much gambling. I mean, you can look at some of the metrics that determine like how much of the coin the founders hold. Like it's good to have a coin that's already fully diluted and doesn't have a large number of the coins vested up and held by the creators of that coin, so they can essentially dump the price on you. So that's where FWOG doesn't, it's fully diluted already, so it's totally community owned. So the likelihood of it getting completely dumped overnight is low. So I haven't done the analysis on the Mother coin. That's also a Solana-based meme coin like FWOG.
Okay.
And it was launched, I think I first heard about it when I was at the Consensus Crypto Conference in Austin, Texas, over there by you, Gerardo. I think that was back in June.
Yes,
That's when
sir.
it launched. I probably should have bought some at because it did surge quite a bit from there. But yeah, it's pure speculation. I mean, and you can gauge that based on where the overall markets are heading. I mean, I think the crypto markets are heading up. So, even though Mother already had its kind of big surge earlier in the year in June. Maybe it could pump again. Its market cap's at 61 million. That's pretty low. Maybe it could pump up to 500 million. I don't know. But yeah, it really illustrates how kind of half of the crypto environment is kind of a lot of nonsense. But that doesn't mean you can't still invest in it and have fun and make money. It just depends on what your risk tolerance is.
Absolutely. And listen, for those of you that are on X or, formerly Twitter, at Iggy Azalea is not the worst follow in the world if you want to keep up with the coin. It makes for a pleasant morning in the crypto space because she is very active with the marketing. And I respect the efforts. I respect the hustle. I respect the intellect of diversifying your brand and your revenue stream. She's done it brilliantly. And as always, I wish everybody that deserves it all the success in the world, right? So anything else you want to get off your chest, Mr. Curl? This has been insightful as always. Thank you for making time because the timing was absolutely perfect. Can't thank you enough.
No, I'm super glad that you had me on, and I'm really excited, like I said, about you guys offering the free trial. I think that's going to onboard some people. People are going to get educated. And I really think that crypto is a nascent industry. And I think with this new administration coming in, we're going to have a lot of pro crypto policies that are really going to send that whole sector up much, much higher. And I think a lot of people, hopefully myself included and my readers, are going to make a lot of money.
That's it, folks. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with our guest, our very special guest, Mr. Chris Curl. This was the 292nd episode of the weekly therapy session that we all need, I think. We happen to call ours Investing in Bizarro World. I hope everybody has a phenomenal November. I'm close to the year. We will see you next week. Take care out there, everyone.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.